Hello, everyone, and welcome to Soul Sparkle Radio. I'm so excited
Soul
to be joined today
sparkle, soul
with
sparkle.
my sparkly brother in Sparkle, Alex Kipp. He is the first Sparkle dude on the podcast, so that's really exciting, and
Oh, amazing.
so glad to have you, Alex.
I've been waiting to sing the theme song.
Oh,
Soul
I know.
sparkle, soul sparkle. It's stuck in my head everywhere I go.
That's
Whenever I'm with you,
fantastic.
I always leave singing that, and people are like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, you got to know. It's so smart of you to have a theme song because it gets trapped in people's head, and they'll always remember you."
Exactly. That's the idea. They'll run around singing sparkles and stuff. It's fantastic. I love this game.
Beautiful.
Love, love, love. Hey, let me tell our listeners a little bit about you because you're such a wizard. I want
If
them to
you
know.
must, if you
Is that
must.
okay?
Sure.
Okay, so Alex is a Leukemia and Lymphoma Society hero. He spreads his transformational strategies of wellness to major clients like United Healthcare, Nationwide Insurance, the University of Michigan, and is also a certified Tony Robbins, Chloe Madden's life coach, speaker, and writer. And he has inspired thousands after surviving non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer, losing his singing voice, and being told he had a 15 to 30% chance of survival. Now, Alex is in complete remission with his voice restored, and he's been featured on PBS, NPR stations, The Huffington Post, Lifehack, Buddha Brain, and is the creator of my favorite podcast, Soul Feed, a top-rated podcast on iTunes. And he's interviewed leaders like Marianne Williamson, Deepak Chopra, Gabby Bernstein, Mastin Kipp, and many, many more. So welcome, 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 Alex Kipp. So
And
glad to
one
have you.
day, and one day, Haley Hines.
Oh, wouldn't that be fun? One of these
For
days.
sure.
I love it. Love, love, love. We're so glad, so glad to have you, Alex. And I usually start off with the first question, which is, what makes your soul sparkle? Like, what is the thing that lights you up from the inside out? We'd love to hear that.
This right here. It's so
Yeah.
simple. Just connecting with like-minded, conscious individuals who have a mission to change the world, no matter how small or big. That is what lights me up from the inside out. I mean, it makes me so happy. It's like time disappears, life flows much easier, and I'm with the people who I feel that I'm meant to be with.
Amen. I love that. I love it. And I know that you've shared with me that you have a really big purpose, like a core root driving force. Do you want to tell us about what that is and how you discovered that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it's always evolving, right? Like we are consciously evolving human beings, whether or not we like it or not, whether or not we're aware of it or not. And so my mission really is all around that. Like spreading consciousness, period. Like waking people up, making people more aware of their unawareness so that they can turn their unawareness into power. Because unconsciously, that's where 95% of your power is, in your unconscious mind, in your subconscious. And yet most of us have no idea how to access it or communicate with it or use it for anything better than stupid habits that get in the way and frustrate us, and things that keep popping up and triggering us from the past and getting stressed about the future. And so my whole mission is being the flower of consciousness. That's how I like to describe it. So instead of running out there and like trying to wake people up and and like, come on, like instead like being it and letting people naturally resonate to me and with my message and the people that, I roll with, I suppose. And then them doing the same. Because there's a difference, right, between being a flower and a bee. Because a bee is always buzzing around, like looking for the flowers, looking for the flowers, like, ooh, who can tell me how to run my life? Who can tell me how to do this? Whereas a flower is just chilling. You know what I'm saying?
And receiving, right?
Yeah, and
Receiving.
receiving, but also giving. you
Right.
know, giving and receiving, but not exhausting itself in the process because it just is. Now, I'm speaking very sort of highfalutinly. I don't even know if that's a word.
Of course it is.
Highfalutinly.
You
But
can
my
make up
point
any
is-
words you want.
Yes, but my point is that this is an ever-evolving process in myself as well. And so I didn't really realize that about myself until 3 months ago.
Right.
You know, 3 months ago, I finally realized, oh my gosh, I'm the bee of consciousness, not the flower of consciousness. And again, it's just another level of awareness. Once you realize that about yourself, or once you come to a different level of awareness, then everything starts shifting. It's like, oh, if I'm the flower and not the bee, that means I should be behaving this way instead of that way. That means I should be doing this instead of that. And then it just starts unraveling until you come to the next sort of ceiling of awareness that you have to bust through.
Right. The next level of awareness.
So that's a long answer to your short question.
That was a really good answer. Really good. I love it because I've experienced that from you. Like the one of, I think your superpowers is recognizing gifts and talents in others and speaking those to them. Like, honestly, Alex, you're one of the reasons why I'm even doing this right now, because the moment I met you, you were like, you need to be doing podcasts. You need to be doing this type of work in the world. Right. And so it just dawned on me. I'm like, you know what? I'm not serving in the highest and best. I'm not at the highest level of service. And that's what I desire to. So I feel like you have a beautiful gift of sharing and recognizing that in others, and then allowing that to happen and supporting people. You know, you've been supportive, very supportive of me. And I'm sure the work that you do with your clients is much the same way. So
for sure. And I just want to say that sometimes that scares people, right? Because that, you're right, that is my gift. I really see people's potential almost as if I can like see their future, which is a skill I'm working on. Psychic abilities.
you've already got it.
But honestly, it's very scary for people sometimes, because sometimes like the things I see in people and the things that we can all see in other people feels so far away from like their current reality that it's almost like too much to even like consider.
Right.
And, you know, I would say to that obviously that's just a lie and an illusion. And yeah, these things aren't going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
Like, I've been at this podcast now for about a year and 3-4 months. And a lot of things have happened very, very quickly. But a lot of things haven't happened in the way that I wanted necessarily. But it doesn't matter when you can see the bigger picture and you can let the bigger picture unfold. The point, though, is that you're serving at your highest capacity, and that's different for everyone. So I'm not also here saying that everyone should go start a podcast and be a voice and blah. No, that might not be your gift. Your gift might be to help, God, someone like me, upload it and spread it out and promote it, which, now we have people helping us with those kinds of things. But the point is serving. It comes back to service for sure. And when I heard your voice, when I heard your voice for the first time, I was just like, I was mesmerized. I was like, wow, your voice is so interesting and beautiful. And it's so unique. People need to hear this voice. You know what I mean? And that's sort of just where it started. And then it kind of unraveled.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the encouragement.
Can I just say one thing about that?
Of course.
Also, I hate when people do this on our podcast, when people just talk the whole time and don't let me ask questions. So I'm going to stop doing that. But I just want to add something to what you just said. And this is really important, guys. Listeners, do you have a name for your listeners? We call our listeners
Soul Sparklers.
Sparklers.
Mine are the Soul Sparklers. Yeah.
Soul Sparklers. Nice. We call our listeners
Yeah.
Soul Warriors. So the Soul Sparklers and the Soul Warriors need to get together sometime.
Hang out, have a party, have a soul party.
So Soul Sparklers out there, this is really important. If you're struggling with maybe figuring out what your gift is, because I know a lot of my clients, this is kind of what we talk about, right? It's like, well, I don't know what I'm good at. Well, I have so many things I feel like I'm good at. This is really important, okay? What do strangers say about you?
Yes.
Not your mom and dad, not your best friends, not your whatever, strangers.
Mhm.
So when I met Haley, she was a complete stranger to me. I didn't know her, but I said that about her voice. So that's really important to key into. In fact, when Haley just said, you know, one of your gifts, Alex, is recognizing gifts and talents in others and sparking them out of them, I literally, as she was saying that, wrote that down, because she said that in such a way that, like, she saw that in me. I'm not necessarily looking for it within myself. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Because it can be very hard sometimes to like figure out like what are my gifts, like if you're just like constantly trying to like consciously think about it, you know, because likely the gifts that you have are things you just do so naturally you don't even think about it, and it's literally just like second nature that you can't even see it. It's so obvious.
Mhm. And it's so easy and so natural that it just flows out of you. Yeah, with ease and grace. I love that. I love that point. And I think
Exactly.
it's so much easier too for other people, because we don't know what we don't know. Like, we have our own experience, and it's only when we're reflected back from someone else how we show up to them do we really go, wow, that's it. That's a gift I have. I didn't realize, you know? So for me, one of mine is pep talks. Like, I'm a mother trucker, like superpower at pep talks, right? But I just have always done it. So it never really was a thing because it just came so naturally to me until someone said it to me and was like, this is a gift that you have. Do this. You need to do this more often. And I'm like, really? Like, you don't even realize. So I love the idea of reflecting back what other people, the beauty that they have or the gifts that they have and the talents, because you're right, it is really hard for us to know those things about ourselves. So
Yeah, and I would say to that, it's hard at first.
yeah.
And then once you have, again, it's just like anything with awareness. It's like once you have that level of awareness, then you don't necessarily have to go out so much for like the sort of looking. In fact, you really don't need to at all. But normally that's the first step and the easiest way, because we don't know how to communicate with ourselves internally yet. And so that's just a really, you know, if someone's just struggling with that question, I would start there and then sort of unravel that internally and figure out what that means for you.
Yeah, I love it. I do agree that that's kind of the first layer. But then don't you think that more and more people, at least in my experience, are starting to kind of tune in to their own intuition and their own kind of divine guidance, like what they're feeling called, and they're becoming more aware of what their highest excitement is, and they're saying yes to more of that. I know for me, as long as I stay on that wave of like, oh my God, that gets me up at 5 o'clock in the morning to start writing about or to do work around or create something around that, that's when I feel like I'm most in the flow. Do you feel like that's becoming more and more common? I would assume with the work that you're doing and the Soul Warriors that that's probably happening as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what I was speaking on was more in terms of like marketing in a weird way, if that
Okay.
makes sense. Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's really hard to put into words like how you're like serving the world and how you're like giving to people. You know, when people ask me like, hey, what do you do for work? I literally have like no idea how to answer that question.
I don't either. How do you
I'm
talk about sparkles in that?
like, I'm like, helping people become more conscious in business in every area of their soul. You know, like that doesn't make sense to a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? So, which to me is like, isn't this the most important thing I could like do ever?
It absolutely is. Absolutely. Maybe
And
they're
so
just
what
not
I'm saying is, yeah. So what I'm saying is like something like Haley said, right? Like that's perfect to be like, oh, like what do you do? Oh, well, I'm really good at recognizing the gifts and talents in other people. Oh, what does that mean? Well, you know, it's interesting. I do that in a lot of ways, like podcasting. I do life coaching. I'm an entrepreneur, a marketing consultant for a lot of people. So really, I think that, gifts and talents are in everyone. And I'm just like here to like get it out of them. And so that then it starts unraveling, you know what I mean?
Can we
So,
just write a whole new like copy for you, like a whole new bio? I love
right.
it.
And that's what I'm saying. Like if you're trying to like write copy or do marketing or describe what you do, I think that's sort of a good tool again to use what we were just talking about before.
I love
But
it.
in terms of like following your bliss, absolutely. I mean, that's everything. Following your bliss, and also not being under the illusion that it's always going to be blissful, because that's where
Amen.
people get tripped up. Okay. And I have been using this metaphor a lot lately because it's been serving me. Jesus didn't have what we would call a very blissful experience, would you say?
Agree. Yeah.
Like, and I am not, advocating Christianity here. I believe, in universal love and a God that is accessible to anyone through any medium. But let's just take Jesus as an example.
Yep.
You would say he suffered, yeah?
For sure.
Bodily, physically, emotionally, mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, was he following his bliss?
Absolutely.
So in some ways, all of that suffering, all of that literally dying, didn't really bother him that much.
When it didn't prevent him from doing his greatest work and mission in the world.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Right. So I think a lot of us have to go through some of that sadness, suffering,
totally,
to get to the highest evolution of ourselves and to become exactly who our soul has wanted for us to be in this lifetime.
You must. It's a necessity. And I think that's the lie and the myth that a lot of people in this industry sort of promote. And I don't like this idea that like, oh, once you get my tools and techniques, you'll be happy forever.
Bullshit.
How can you possibly know what happiness is unless you know what unhappiness is?
Exactly. I was just thinking about that yesterday. I was thinking what a stark contrast my life looks like even 12 months ago, 24 months ago to now, and how grateful I am for those experiences that I had to go through of the darkness so I could recognize this light, this joy, this happiness now that I didn't know what I didn't know before. And it has provided a beautiful contrast. I mean, it sucked to go through it, a lot of suffering, but to be able to know now what's possible, it's all worth it. Totally worth it.
And the amazing thing is about that is no matter what you're going through or where you are, you always have a choice as to how you perceive it.
Amen.
And I think it's so simple, yet not easy.
Not easy.
And
exactly.
Often forgotten. That literally you have the choice right now to shift anything in your mind, which is where, well, actually is not where any shifts happen in your mind, but it's where it starts for most people, getting those thoughts right and refixing that. But ideally the goal is not to think at all.
Right. Just
which
allow
is very controversial, but it's something I'm believing in more and more, and really trying to literally eradicate my thinking.
I love it. That's next level shit though, Alex.
So, it really is. And trust me, it's hard because to eradicate thinking, you have to think about not thinking.
Exactly.
But that's the awareness stage, until you can think about not thinking enough, then you can start realizing and just be empty of thought.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you say that, because they're like, so on my path on the way to where that is, there have been two kind of mantras that I've kind of held on to, that when I've been in a situation that could be potentially stressful or disturbing or unsettling, I always have been thinking, the first thing I think of is things always happen for me, not to me. Things happen for me, not to me, right? So this is happening for me, allowing that feeling to settle in and not react so quickly like, oh my God, it's going to be a horrible thing. Things happen. This is happening for me. And the second one that has been so incredibly helpful is that I will say things always work out for me. Things always work out for me. So like when I found out my passport was expired and I was about to leave the country in 2 days, I'm like, oh, well, things always work out for me. So I'm going to get another passport. It's going to be fine. Things always work out for me, right? So, my flight, I showed up at the airport one time and I wasn't scheduled for the flight that day. I was scheduled for the next day, but I had a big meeting that's the end of that day I had to be at. So I'm like, well, of course things always work out for me. So I'm going to get on this flight. It's going to be fine. So you just can almost reset it immediately. And instead of going down into the mucky yuck of stories that you can get into and the how horrible this is going to turn out, those two things, at least for me, have been really good to shift my experience into one of more a positive place. So those are kind of fun. I don't know if you have any mantras or things that you might suggest to our soul sparklers that they could practice in the path of getting to the no thinking. Until you get there, what do you need to do?
For sure. One thing that's really helped me out, and I love this presupposition you started out with, is things always work out for me, because if it doesn't work out the way you planned, it's still under this presupposition that things are working out for you, which means you just aren't able to see the grace in it yet, but it's coming. And
right,
I think it's important to understand that I'm not just talking about this shit, right? That's the other thing. A lot of people just and not that this is wrong, but a lot of people don't really know what darkness means. Okay? As in they haven't actually been there. They talk about it a lot, but they don't really know what it means. So I know what it means because, it literally almost killed me. And I'm going to get to your question, but I just want to mention this so that when people hear my story, it'll sort of resonate everything I'm saying a little differently, instead of just some white pretty boy who's talking about beautiful happy
Fairy
life.
dust.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, as Haley mentioned in the bio, I am a cancer survivor, and like we were saying earlier, you can't know light until you know darkness. You can know light, right? But in my mind, the people who have experienced a lot of darkness also have such potential to be such bright lights, no matter what it is you've gone through. I've seen it over and over again. I've seen it in people who have been, rape victims. I've seen it in people who've been, molested. I've seen it in people who've witnessed murders. I've seen it in people who've gone through cancer like I did. And I'm not also saying that you have to experience the most dark thing to become a light worker, but I'm just saying the potential for light workers who have experienced intense darkness is so great and beautiful. And that is the gift in whatever darkness you have experienced. And for me, I was a singer, right? The University of Michigan, which is the best musical theater school in the country. And my favorite character to play was Gaston from Beauty and the Beast.
Nice.
Beauty and the Beast?
You might have to sing us a little bit at the end here.
So his favorite song, or his signature song at the end, he just goes, me. He just sings out me over and over and over again because, Gaston's obsessed with himself. He's completely egocentric. And that was literally my life. I was Gaston on stage and Gaston kind of off stage. And not to the highest extreme of Gaston, obviously, but my point being is that I didn't care about other people. I didn't care about how my gift, my voice could actually serve other people. I only cared about whether it was going to bring me this role on Broadway, whether I could get paid with it, who I was going to impress with it, what I was going to do, you know, with that note to make everyone go, ooh, so cool. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I cared about. So my senior year, losing my voice completely. I sounded like this. I didn't know what was going on. I'm like singing in front of people. I'm like performing and like sounding horrible. Like literally like, like could not sing a note.
Wow.
Not a note, but I could not sing the way I have been singing my entire life. And so found out I got diagnosed with cancer. And so not only was I diagnosed with cancer, but I lost my voice pretty much completely for 2 years. So again, I sounded like this. And, you know, if we were in a loud restaurant, like you wouldn't be able to hear me. I'd have to like lean over and like, and, people I didn't know would be like, oh man, you out partying too much last night? Ha ha ha. And I'm like, no, I have cancer.
Like buzzkill. Yeah, totally. And then they feel
or like,
great.
I was completely bald and like people who I'd known from my past are like, oh, are you like doing some like crazy role where you had to shave your head on stage? I'm like, no, I have cancer.
Bless your heart. God.
And then the worst part is like, what was really funny is like, my experience wasn't really that bad. In terms, I mean, it was bad from the outside looking in. Like I had 6 rounds of chemotherapy. They told me that didn't work. And so that I would need a stem cell transplant, which at that point I then had a 15 to 30% chance to survive. And, stem cell transplants basically like one of the most intense things you can put your body through. But I did it. I survived. And, 2 weeks later, or not 2 weeks later, about a month later, I rode 100 miles for a cancer research bike ride. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
the power of the mind is just, I'm not going to say the power of your mind anymore because it's really not the power of your mind, as I'm realizing. The power of your soul is really powerful because the mind really gets in the way, actually. And this is the other thing I'm realizing. People are always talking about the power of the mind, the power of the mind. And it's like, that's not where your power is. You know what I mean? That's where it starts, but like, that's not ultimately where your power is. And again, this is like new awareness within myself that I've been realizing lately. But my point is that when you go through something like that, you have 2 choices. One can ruin you. And, I'm never going to be a Broadway star again. My life is completely ruined. I'm never going to do what I plan to do. Or 2 can be the greatest gift you've ever been given. Because now you finally know what it means to be alive, what it means to have light, and what it means to help other people's light emerge. So I just wanted to talk about that because we can never underestimate how important our creative ability to choose is.
Amen.
We can just never underestimate that. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's literally insane, the things we can do.
Well, and it's amazing. Absolutely. And just the sharing of that story too, I think helps us to realize that sometimes things show up in our life in order to change us into the highest evolution of ourselves, right? And now the work that you're called to do, having been through that experience and the light that you're able to bring and the stories you're able to tell and the inspiration and the motivation and ultimately the transformation that you create, the world would not be served had you not had to go through that to become the man you are today.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to like when I hear you say that, I sort of feel like I I don't want to be on a pedestal, and I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal, but I think what I hear in that is that that's a potential for all of us.
For all of us. That's what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And the point is that like, if we all operate under this assumption that we are one, it doesn't matter, you know, if I ever, you know, have a room with 5,000 people doing a seminar or not, or I'm just sitting in my room, like meditating love out. It doesn't matter, because, you know, one person's healing is another person's healing too. It's a vibrational effect. Mm-hmm. So, but I think what's important about this is that I made the decision right when I got diagnosed that this was going to be the greatest gift of my life. And I don't know necessarily where that came from or how that choice was made, but it was just so instinctual and so automatic that literally when I was diagnosed, I experienced what they call post-traumatic. What is
stress syndrome?
Yes.
Post-traumatic stress. Yeah.
That's what most people say, post-traumatic stress, right? But I experienced post-traumatic growth.
Nice.
And this is the thing, that is an actual psychological thing that happens and that has been studied and reviewed, and it's very real, yet no one talks about it, right? So we're living in this collective consciousness of, if something bad happens to you, you're going to experience post-traumatic stress. You're probably going to need to, you know, go through a lot of therapy. You're probably never going to be the same. It's all bullshit.
Yep.
The opposite is very real and very powerful. And wake up, because we can all do it. And that's why, you know, that's why people need to talk about it more, right? Because that's the thing. Right. I do that in all my talks. I'm like, I experienced post-traumatic, and all the audience goes stress. And I'm like, no.
Not that.
Delete it. Delete, you know?
Different story. It's a different story.
Totally.
Yeah, of what's possible. I love it. Love that. And from all of that experience, you felt called to share your story, share this conversation with more people through your podcast. And you want to tell us about why you felt called to start that, and maybe like how it's helped you transform personally, and maybe some experiences of your listeners that you might want to share.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there.
Or is that a whole nother conversation?
It's almost a whole nother podcast, but yeah, we can definitely talk about it. And I definitely want to get back to your original question, which was sort of a technique people can do to connect out of their mind. Okay. But we'll close out with that. Yeah, we'll close out with that. That sounds good. We'll make it a little meditative, in fact, so people can have it for their day.
Perfect. I love it.
And their life.
Right.
But yeah, I think what's interesting is, right, you go through an experience like that, and yes, I had learned all these things and become this new person, yet my ego still wanted me to become that thing I wanted to become, right? So there was still this like internal like struggle of like, hey, I think you should maybe like go help people over here and like start talking about this kind of stuff. And like another part of me is like, no, you have to prove cancer wrong by being on Broadway. You have to become the leading man of the century. Like, what are you doing? You survived for that reason. And, you know, no, I'm going to choose what I want to choose. And perhaps all of this has just been leading me to this choice, right?
Yeah.
I believe is divinely sent, divinely guided, and ultimately created by me for the purpose of what I'm doing now.
Amen.
And how do I know that? Because it feels completely different. And that's how you'll know. So when I was going to auditions, when I was thinking about being in shows, when I was, I don't want to sound judgmental or whatever, but when I was around people in that industry, I wasn't vibing with them in the same way. And I just started to slowly let go and realize that my gifts can still be used just for a way different purpose. And so naturally, you know, the voice and the speaking and the singing and being on stage is sort of a natural sort of elevation for a podcast. And this is actually the podcast Soul Feed is a co-hosted show. So it's my co-host Shannon Algio, who's like a big yogi in the world of yogi world. He's big in there. And he also does life coaching. And so we partnered up and we're like, you know what? We got to go bigger, bro. And at the time, he was the only person I knew literally in my life that was thinking these kind of things like I was. That was like plugged into like something bigger. That was obsessed with like Hay House authors and like, you know, listening to like Hay House interviews and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is another tip I would say. If you feel like you can't do it on your own yet, partner up with someone. You know what I mean?
Right.
I literally knew no one who thought like this. Literally no one. Which goes to show you maybe why I was in that vibrational place to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
People you hang out with, the 5 people you spend the most time with are the people you become. You lie down
Amen.
with dogs, you get fleas.
Amen. Yep. So true.
And it's been said over and over and over again, and it's literally true because, you know, there's so many studies on it. So anyways, we were just like, let's do it, bro. We're going to do it. So our first guest was Marianne Williamson.
That's
And
awesome.
how it happened was we went to see her speak in New York. And I was like, she's coming on the podcast. We have to have her on. So she was doing a book signing. She didn't know us at all, obviously. She's doing a book signing. I was in line. And, you know, I have a lot of like language pattern techniques that I know and stuff like that. So I know how to like talk in a way that's persuasive through hypnosis and other things like that. But not that I'm saying I hypnotize or anything weird like that, but like I'm just saying like I can tell when like, you know, there's a crowd of people like what to say and what not to say, right? Because so many people like give this like 3-minute like diatribe, or was that the word? Diatribe? Diatribe, is that it?
TRIBE, like tribe.
Diatribe. Nice. Diatribe. That sounds interesting, huh? Diatribe.
I think that's it. I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing I do, by the way. I just make up words.
Me too. That's why I love you.
Why not, right? Shakespeare made up words. Why can't we make up words?
Do whatever we want. We're the boss.
It sounded right. Diatribe.
Yeah,
Anyways.
I'll take it. We'll take it.
Anyways, my point being is that like a lot of people do that, right? And I'm like, it's not going to work. So I went up to her and I was just like, hey, I know this is not the right time. I know you've got like really not a lot of time, but blah, 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 blah about the podcast. Da, 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 da. I would love for you to come on. How would you think about that? Because we're going to reach a younger generation that needs to hear your message, that da, 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 da. She just looks at me. She goes, here's my email. And she writes down her email. And she's like, talk to my assistant over there. And I'm like, okay. And like, that's how I got set up. And literally, we hadn't even sat down to record a single episode yet. This was just an idea. We didn't even have the name yet. At the time, we were going to call it Soul Workout instead of Soul Feed. So the power of intention, the power of being bold, and the power of going for what you want is so important. And I've never had a problem with that. But what I've learned throughout this journey of interviewing people like Deepak and Gabby Bernstein and Masson Kipp and Gretchen Rubin, and I mean, the list just goes on, is that I need to get better at being and not always doing.
Nice.
And I've also learned, the most important lesson I've learned is that I have the answers.
I love that.
Okay?
Yep.
And that I want everyone listening, I want all your soul sparklers listening to know this: you are the master of your reality and your own experience. You don't technically need to go anywhere for the answers, but it is helpful to get you started, and they can point to you things that might come up, or, you know, roads you might want to take versus these roads. But at the end of the day, you are the master. And what I think is very dangerous and I'm saying this because I realized this in myself. I interviewed Deepak Chopra. 2 days later, I interviewed Carolyn Mace. Now, you would think that they'd be saying the same thing, right? Because they're two of the most high.
Mhm. Are you there? There you are.
Yes. Did you lose me?
We
Great. Did
lost
you
you
lose me
for-
for a little bit?
Yep. So
Perfect.
let's go back to where you were talking about 2 days between interviewing Deepak and Caroline.
Okay, great. And you can just edit this and do what you want with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was 2 days in a row where
Mm. You there? Hello. There. Are you there?
2 days after, I interviewed Carolyn Mace.
Okay. I don't know what's wrong. It's
Is that better?
fading in. Wait, there you go. There you are. Now I see you.
Okay. Good?
Yep. Okay, go.
Okay.
So there were 2 days between your interviews with
Oh, okay,
Deepak
yes,
and
yes.
Caroline, and you would think they were saying the same thing, but they weren't. Okay.
Yes. So, yeah, I interviewed Deepak Chopra. 2 days later, I interviewed Carolyn Mace. And you would think that these two highly enlightened spiritual teachers would be saying the same thing, right?
Yep, you would think.
You would think that, right? I mean, isn't universal truth universal? Isn't all this, isn't there a roadmap? Isn't there a way? Isn't there who has the freaking answer? Because they
Right.
weren't saying the same things. And I'm like,
Wow.
what is going on? This doesn't make sense. Like, I don't understand this. And then I realized, Alex, I woke up. Boom. Alex, you are the truth. We all are the truth. We all experience God differently, the universe, love, soul, whatever you want to call it. Now, there are universal truths, yes, of course. But the problem is that most of us are looking at the teacher
As the way.
and not looking at where they're looking. Okay?
Right.
Because what you realize is that, yes, they have a very unique and to the divine. It's coming. And so
Can't hear you, love. Hmm. You there? I keep losing you. You there?
is this better?
Hello? There you are. What are you doing over there?
I don't know what's going on.
Coming
This
in and out like
is
you own the
horrible.
place. I love it. Okay, so you were saying how we're looking at the teacher, not where the teacher is looking. So we should be focused more on our own truth versus putting all of our hope and desire or um, following to the teacher. Is that right? Is that what you're trying to say?
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. Now, teachers are always going to be able to teach you amazing things and teach you insights, and you'll learn new things, but you have to realize that it's their experience. And so take the nuggets of wisdom and yes, apply it to whatever you're doing or how you're experiencing the divine, but don't take it as the truth
Gospel.
necessarily.
Yep.
The truth is that you're here to create your truth.
Amen.
You know, it's like God came down through Jesus so that he could experience himself in human form.
Humanity.
So
Yeah.
that he could
exactly.
experience a new truth within himself, you know, and then obviously show the world what unconditional love really means. And many others have done the same thing. Buddha, Krishna, like so many others. It's not just Jesus. But the point is that they already knew that, right? That they already knew that like they were the truth and the truth was within them. And when they said things like follow me, it wasn't like I am the only way to truth. It was like follow my example.
Exactly.
Like, look, I am the truth. You are the truth too.
Yep.
So that would be the only thing I think that's been my biggest revelation throughout this journey, because when I first started it, I was looking for the truth in others. And as I interviewed more and more and more and more and talking with all these people, I started to realize, oh, wait, no one has the absolute truth.
Right.
And that's a beautiful thing once you realize that, because then you stop seeking and you start becoming.
Oh, that right there is like, if that would resonate and land with people, that to me is a game changer. It's realizing that there is nothing that we need outside of ourselves. The guru that people are seeking is within, right?
Totally.
And when you can find that within yourself, then there is no longer a reason to look outside of yourself, because you already have the answers. You already have the truth. You already have that source to the divine that can allow you to receive every answer to every question you've ever going to have from now to the end of time.
Totally.
I love that. Love it.
Yeah. And that also means that you come to teachers with a different lens. So it's more in the lens of, hey, I'm experiencing this, or this seems to be coming up, but how do you manage that? Or how do you deal with that? And then, oh, well, normally when I experience that, I do this, 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 and that. And then it's like, oh, interesting. Okay. So again, it's not that you like take it as like, oh, okay, that's what I need to do. Okay, I'm going to do that right away tomorrow. It's more like it opens your mind to different possibilities, different creative avenues. And so teachers will always be important. Having coaches will always be important because they can help you see your blind spots. But at the end of the day, you're the one doing the work.
Right. And
You're the one solving it, not the coach. That's why I always say to my clients, I'm like, you know, you just did that, right? Like I helped to guide you through it, but you're the one who walked through that maze in your mind, right? You know that. And people don't know that. They literally think I did it for them. And I'm like, yeah, I guided you through very interesting ways, but you did the work.
Right. Well, and I think too, it helps us to trust ourselves more versus putting all of our trust in people outside of us, right? So to me, it's just a way of saying, no, we already know what the right path is for ourselves, and we can seek guidance, but we don't have to put all of our hopes and trust into something that's outside of ourselves, because you're right, we already know the answers. So I love it. I love that. Alex, would you share with us back, circling back, because I know we're about to close out our time together today, but circle back to that, the mantra, or that the teaching or the essence of what you think would be a great way, or a meditation people could take with them today.
Yeah. So again, what I'm going to say is simple, but not easy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's always the path. It's never going to be easy, guys. I hate to tell you that, but if people say it, it's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can find ease in uneasiness, though.
True.
So that's the sort of divine dichotomy, right? So I think it all comes back to presence in terms of these mantras. And I mean, really, what's the point of these mantras? What's the point of, is it really about like changing your thinking patterns, or is it more about coming back to reality? Like literally coming back to the present moment where there is no future, past, or present. It just is. And that can only be discovered in the void, in the absence of thinking.
Amen.
So it's hard. It's so hard. And it's not that we can't do it, it's that it's a habit like anything else. Like anything else, it's a habit. And the problem is when you're in that habitual state of always thinking, you're never allowing anything to work through you. How could it?
Right. There's no
if something's trying to work through you and you have like this like noise and like it's sort of like a block, right? It's sort of like, well, you know, like one of those nets when you like fall and you like fall into the net, you know? It's like that. It's like that net, you know? It's like something's trying to like fall through you, you know? Something's trying to be like downloaded, but it like can't get through that fucking net.
There's no space.
Or there's like little holes in the net, so like some of it comes through, but like it can't just like plop down into you. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I love it.
So, and I actually do a whole episode on this on Soulfeed, and you know, I have this monthly program called Soul Tribe where we do a lot of things like this. But one exercise that's really fun is to first notice, right? First, you have to notice. You will be shocked once you start realizing how many times you go to your head and start talking to yourself. You'll be shocked. You'll literally be like, oh, there it is again. Oh my God. Oh, there all day. You'll be like, oh, there it is. Oh, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, all day. All I do is talk to myself in my head.
All day long.
You know what's interesting is they put people in insane asylums for that.
I think we should all probably be there.
Just some people are more vocal about what they're hearing.
Right. They just say theirs out loud all the time and we just try to keep it into ourselves. Yeah, I got you.
Exactly.
You want to walk us through something? Is there an exercise that you want to share? Okay, cool.
For sure.
I love
so
it.
Again, the first thing is awareness. So when you hear it, because if you're not aware of it, no exercise is going to work because you're not aware of it. So the first thing is when you hear it, stop. And this is where I think a mantra is appropriate or helpful. I like to say, I'm free. Now, some people like to say, I'm back. Some people like to say what you said, which was?
Things always work out for me.
Things always work out for me. Great. But it's sort of this, it sort of should be a mantra with the presupposition of I'm coming back to now.
Right.
As in I'm coming back to no thought land.
Got it.
So again, mine's I'm free, others is I'm back. You can use those if you like, or you can be your own master and create your own phrase that works for you. Once you do that, I'm free, leave space for no thinking, and immediately start to engage your senses. So look around, notice things. I just moved into this new apartment in San Diego, which you know. And right now I'm looking around and I'm seeing new things I've never seen before. You may have lived in your apartment for 5 years or your house for 10 years. You will see something that you have never seen before, I guarantee it. And you'll be like, how has this been here my entire life and I've never seen it before? That's how much we're in our heads, right? So engage your senses. See something you've never seen before. Or just notice something. Notice a new color. Smell. Like smell the room. What's the room smell like? When do we ever stop and just smell what our environment smells like? I know I don't. Hear. What are you hearing? My hearing is really good. I hear everything. So that's one of my senses that's always active and alive. Notice, like, what's your temperature like? Just notice, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then go back into whatever you're doing. And then once that thought comes up again, boom, do it again. I'm free.
Yep.
And again, this takes 10 seconds, maybe. And so the first couple of days, you're literally going to be like a crazy person going around saying, I'm free all the time, or I'm back, or whatever it is you want to say, because we talk so much in our heads. And again, I'm not perfect at this yet, but I'm getting there, and it starts there. It starts with awareness. And there's many, many more advanced things you can do from there, but I would definitely start there.
Thank you so much. If you find out more about the Soul Warrior monthly program or listen to the podcast, can you send them to the right spot?
Yeah, for sure.
Tell
And
us where they need to go.
we
can add links
actually,
to that.
what's that?
We can add links and things to them for those things.
Add the links, the zippity zap, boom, links. Nice. Yeah, well, first off, check out the podcast Soul Feed. Soul Feed, one word, like BuzzFeed, except for your soul.
Except not that.
Except not, it's for your soul. Which I'm probably going to get sued one day for saying that, but oh well, whatever. By the time that happens, I'll have enough money to cover it.
Fine.
So yeah, check out Soul Feed. And my partner and I, Shannon, we have started this monthly program called Soul Tribe, because we find that, you know, so many people have these great podcasts they listen to and have these great, you know, workshops they go to, but they're not doing it on like a continual basis. As in, it's not like setting in. It's like you get really inspired, you know, oh yeah, I'm going to do it. And then like 2 months later, you're like, what was that thing I was going to do? You know what I mean? And we've experienced that ourselves with teachers we've connected with and programs we've been through. So yeah, that's our chance to sort of give back. It's only $19 a month, and the first month is completely free. So we want to give everyone the chance to check it out, try it out. If you don't dig it, great, no problem. We'll just give you a refund or whatever. So you can access that at thesoulfeed.com/soultribe, thesoulfeed.com/soultribe. Or you can just text the word Soul Feed, one word, to 33444, and we can send you information about it there. And also what I love about that too is that we do monthly workshops online where, you know, we're actually interacting with our soul warriors, so they can ask us any questions they want based on the videos they've seen for the month, based on the mantras that we've given them for the month and all that. And yeah, and then my website's alexkipp.com, where you can check that out too. And I help people like Miss Haley here and other wellness leaders, you know, do things like this and market this out and get their message out to the world, because it's so important.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. We so appreciate you being here today. I learned some cool new tricks and tips, and I have a feeling you might have to do another one just to dig into this even more. One of these days, right?
Sure. I'm totally down, and we got to do an event sometime. See, Haley, listeners, if you guys have not been to one of her events, you must go. Unfortunately, they're mostly for women, which I hate, but one day I'm just going to sneak in anyways. I don't care.
I love it. Love, love, love. So thank you so much for being here. And I will look forward to talking to you soon. And thank you, all of you Soul Sparklers, for joining us today. I look forward to the next time we get to spend time together. So
Soul Sparkle, Soul Sparkle.
How does it get better than that? Amen. Peace out. Much love. Mwah.
Bye.